Sup, everyone? We got Joey D and we got Timmy B back at it again for the next episode of the Flea Flicker. And Joey D, my friend, we are going to be reacting to the Week 1 NFL slate on Sunday as well as Monday evening. And let me ask you, Joe, I know I felt good watching some games on Sunday, maybe not Monday night, but man, it feels good to be back watching football on the weekends.
Oh, you're telling me, Timmy B. It is good to be an Eagles fan once again. Hope is back. We are going on a run. It is about to be amazing. In all seriousness, it was a great day of football on Sunday. Red Zone was on one
Mhm.
TV, the Eagles game on the other. It was glorious. Fantasies. We went 2-2 this week, so
Okay.
not great, not awful. Um, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, a lot of upsets, a lot of we did not do well with our picks this week, Tim. This might have been worse than any of the weeks we had all of last season in week one. Is that right?
Needless to say, Joe, we did have an epic collapse. We finished the week off 10-6. No surprise, you guys can go tally up our picks from our picks episode. But we were 6-2 at one point, Joe. So we were kind of cruising, maybe a division favorite, and now we're kind of crawling into the wild card, going the wrong way, heading into the playoffs at 10 and
Mm.
6, my friend. But we're going to do things a little bit differently. We are still going to be recapping all of the games, but since it's week one, we're going to do a nice little overreaction, buy or sell. We'll still be discussing the games. We just think it's best for us to talk about it, and it's best for you guys to listen to it as much as you would love 45 minutes on us talking about the Panthers and Jets struggle bus. We'll just do a couple of overreactions, a little bit of buying and selling and seeing what we saw. Before we get into game number one, Joe, and I know you're excited to talk about this with your Houston Texans, hit that thumbs up button to like the video and subscribe to our channel. The support is greatly appreciated. Now, Joe, you said last week that the Texans would not win a football game. And I agreed with you. I said they would win two games, but I said if they were going to win a game, it would be this one against the Jacksonville Jaguars. And they did 37-21. Trevor Lawrence, three picks, very bad picks, and had some very bad throws, three touchdowns. Tyrod Taylor, I mean, Mark Ingram, Philip Lindsay, David Johnson all scored touchdowns at running back by committee. Now, uh, as I said, with our overreaction, buy and sell, and everything like that, the overreaction is the Jaguars are still the worst team in not only the division, but all of football, and will have the number one pick next year. Joe, are you buying or selling that?
Yeah, I think I'm buying it. I mean, it's early and it's growing pains for Trevor as a rookie and for Urban Meyer as a first year NFL head coach. So, there are growing pains, but I think a lot of us, myself included, expected, Trevor to come in and the entire team would just look so much better. I mean, this defense looked atrocious
Mhm.
against the Texans. This is not an encouraging way to start out the Trevor Lawrence and Urban Meyer experiment. And I've spoken very negatively about Urban Meyer because I'm just not high on him at all in the NFL, and I just don't see it working out. And I mean, he's not a guy who's used to losing, so it's going to be interesting to see how the team responds. But not a culture he knows how to really overcome. So it's for a team that has struggled to overcome losing as well. It's hard to get out of that funk, and I wouldn't be shocked to see him stay there.
Yeah, and I think this would have been an easy pick against the Jaguars if they were playing a team that wasn't the Texans. But everybody was making a good point Sunday afternoon and Monday morning saying the Texans have been here before. It's a bunch of scrappy veterans who are maybe past their prime, but they've been here before. They know what they're doing. So obviously, you're probably going to beat a rookie quarterback and a rookie head coach when the rest of the roster still isn't fantastic. So I think it would have been a very easy pick had the Jaguars been maybe playing, well, maybe not the Titans based on their performance, but pretty much any other team but the Texans. I think we both probably would have picked against them. But shout out to the Texans and David Culley for getting their first win. Joe, you also said, I mean, USC, Southern California, very open job right now. Do you see Urban Meyer maybe not lasting a full season in the NFL? Should they give him a call?
That's right, Tim. I think that is not an overreaction at all.
Ooh.
I mean, this is a guy who again, he has never endured a losing season. It's not something he's used to, knows how to overcome and get the team motivated. And it seems like, between the Tim Tebow experiment, Trevor Lawrence, first overall draft pick, Urban Meyer, head coach, this is a team that is more interested in selling tickets than winning games. And if I'm the Jaguars, I don't want to be wasting Trevor Lawrence's prime years, especially on his rookie contract, with a head coach who cares more about his contract than, you know, his the people around him than, how the team does. So, if I'm and Urban Meyer, I mean, he's definitely eyeing that USC job. I'm sure that, he heard some of those reports, going into the weekend and everything. And, maybe that was a distraction on Sunday. So I don't know, but I would not be shocked to see Urban Meyer leave and go to USC at some point. And if that does happen, I think that would be best for everyone in Jacksonville. So
Yeah,
we'll
and
see.
if you're Jaguars ownership, you got to make that decision very, very quickly, or maybe even at the end of this season, because there's no denying Trevor Lawrence's talent. Joe, we saw that firsthand in person how deadly Trevor Lawrence can be, and how talented he is. So that's a decision that they're going to have to make, saying, "Hey, is Urban the guy, or should we bring in somebody else to pair up with Trevor for the remainder of his rookie deal and even beyond?" So that's enough about two stinkers in the AFC and in the whole NFL. Now we're moving on to the 49ers and the Detroit Lions. 49ers went up big. It was 41-10, 41-13, fourth quarter. Easy peasy. Let's just coast to win. Well, hold on. Lions came back and made it to 33 points. They recovered an onside kick that doinked off of George Kittle's forehead. But the Lions came back strong. 49ers offense looked good. Raheem Mostert got injured, but Elijah Mitchell stepped in, as well as some of the other guys. And I believe Hasty had a touchdown. Debo
Mhm.
Samuel went off, of course. I mean, why not? Gamecock, of course. But the overreaction here, Joe, is the 49ers defense cannot hold up with the rest of the division for this season. They had a couple of big injuries in the secondary. So are you buying or selling that this 49ers defense is not as strong as it was a couple of years ago when they went to the Super Bowl?
Yeah, I'm definitely buying that. It is not as strong. I mean, I think they've been in talks with bringing back Richard Sherman potentially, who's still out there after week one. I mean, this is, a team that, in the secondary, it's a bunch of guys that, we don't really know. And, they're rookies or journeymen. Not really many household names back there outside of Jason Verrett, who unfortunately is now out for the season. So it's going to be really tough for them to hold up against some of these explosive passing offenses like we saw against the rest of their division already in week one. I mean, they have a phenomenal front seven. There's no getting around that. But there are ways to scheme past a front seven and just exploit those DBs. I mean, as an Eagles fan, I know what it's like having a good D line and terrible secondary. Let me tell you, it is beatable. It is very beatable. So we'll see what happens as the season progresses. D'Amico Ryans is their defensive coordinator now. I know, firsthand, he's a fantastic leader and he was a great defensive player. So I'm sure he'll get things turned around. But it's tough when you don't have many guys in the secondary that can cover starters in the NFL.
Yeah, and it's definitely going to be tough. I think I'm going to be buying this overreaction as well, just because if you just look at the division, not as much as the rest of the league. I mean, you got DeAndre Hopkins and AJ Green and everything happening down there in Arizona. You have Robert Woods and Cooper Cup and Tyler Higbee. We'll get to the Rams later, of course. And you have Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf that we'll get to in a second with the Seahawks. So playing those teams 6 times a year, that's not a good recipe for a banged up secondary. And we'll talk about the other teams as well as we move on. Now, Joe, any promising thing about the Lions? I mean, they did come back, more or less. They made it a game. Is that was that just lightning in a bottle, or do we think that the Lions might be a little bit better than people expect?
I think that, Dan Campbell as a coach might be a little
Mhm.
bit better than people expect, and especially in terms of just kind of getting, keeping people fighting, and I mean not giving
Yeah,
up when they're down that big. I mean, they never gave up throughout that game, and they really did make it close at the end. T.J. Hawkinson had a really good game, which I love to see in my fantasy. So I mean, this is a defense that still just doesn't have much, and what they did have, Jeffrey Okuda now out for the season. So it's going to be a tough season for the Lions, but those signs of life and fight are building blocks for potential success down the line as you fill out the roster with more talent. That's the type of culture that Dan Campbell is looking to instill, and I love what he's bringing to the table. But unfortunately, he went up against a great
mhm.
49ers team, and certain wide receiver out of the University of South Carolina and Debo Samuel, who I'm giving you an overreaction. He's going to his first Pro Bowl this season. Let's go. Go
Hey,
Cox.
hey, I'm buying that every single day, Joe. Hopefully it does happen. Hopefully he can stay healthy on there. And I agree with the Lions. I think that the coaching might be there, and they have a couple of pieces. Obviously, they got Panay Sewell, who is probably going to be a Hall of Famer at left tackle, pending he stays healthy and everything like that. They just need to work around that. And we'll see next week. They go to Lambeau Field, so we'll see if the Lions are for real a little bit better. The Packers are as bad as we think. We'll get to them later as well. Or is going to be a classic Aaron Rodgers throws for 500 yards and 12 touchdowns, and Packers win by 50. So we'll see. The next game, very boring game. This did not pop up on Red Zone often, Joe. We got the Carolina Panthers defeating the New York Jets 19-14. Thank God I had Panthers 3.5, and they stopped them on the 2-point conversion to make it a 3-point game. So shout out to the Panthers defense for doing that. We talked about this, Joe, and our overreaction, the one that we decided on, was that Adam Gase is probably not probably. The overreaction is Adam Gase is the worst head coach of all time. Yes, even worse than Hugh Jackson. And the Jets aren't actually Jets bad, and they actually have a decent team. So are you buying or selling that, Joe?
Yes, I am buying that every day, Timmy B. I mean, you look at both of these teams, and so much of Adam Gase's fingerprints are all over. With Sam Darnold now in Carolina, with Robbie Anderson having one of the best games of his career. Week one. I mean, he was efficient with the ball. He got the win. He did not turn the ball over at all. He threw a deep
Oh,
touchdown
I
to
thought you
Robbie
were talking about
Anderson.
Robbie Anderson. I was like, no,
No,
no, that
no,
was his
no.
only catch of the game.
Oh
And
no, I
for
know. Trust me,
fantasy, I'm very
I have
happy
him
it
in
was a
two.
yeah. At
I
least it was
had
a
him in
50
two
yard
leagues.
touchdown.
It
Yeah,
was great. It was great. If you're gonna get one catch, it better be that. But no, I mean for Sam Darnold,
yeah.
one of his best games of his career. I mean, coming out with the win in week one, spreading the ball around to everybody, hitting the deep shot on target. And like I said, not turning the ball over and also have a rushing touchdown. So he was very efficient. And, that speaks to, just how terrible Adam Gase was at putting him in position to succeed throughout his tenure as the Jets head coach with Sam Darnold there. And then you look at the Jets themselves. This was
Mhm.
a close game. It was a good game throughout. This defense played a little bit better than I think people expected. I mean, especially with the injuries that they've already suffered at pass rusher. Um, and it was a low scoring, close game that they had a shot at the end. So I like the fight that I saw out of them, and kind of like with Dan Campbell, Robert Sala starting to change the culture a little bit. They also suffered a devastating injury at left tackle from
Mhm.
Becton, but Zach Wilson looked good. They're making plays down the field, and we're just not clearly a disaster and unwatchable. There were signs of life. So again, this is the team that Adam Gase has been drafting, coaching, building, and for the first game where he's not the head coach, now we see a team that looks at the very least like a competent NFL team. So I love
Yeah.
to see it. I hate Adam Gase. I hope that the high school that he's coaching at fires him too, and he has to go coach Pee Wee and doesn't even succeed
Yeah, I'm selling that. Hugh Jackson is the worst head coach of all time. No, Adam Gase is a very close second.
there.
Very close. I'm not saying Adam Gase is good. Just the record would suggest that Hugh Jackson is a little bit worse. But I'm also with you with the Jets. And we talked about this too. And I remember bringing this up with the Bengals, is that they're going to be in games competitively. It's just that the other team is a little bit better, whether it's coaching or roster or whatever. So they're just not going to win these type of games that often. I think we'll see the same thing with the Jets. They'll be in most games. We'll see a lot of good flashes from Zach Wilson, some good flashes from that defense. But at the end of the day, Panthers just had a little bit of a better coaching with them and a little bit of a better roster. So they were able to squeak out a 19-14 win. And speaking of the Cincinnati Bengals, that's a good segue into the next game, because we have the Bengals defeating the Vikings 27-24 in overtime. Joe, you picked the Vikings. I picked the Bengals. Very excited about that one. The first
Just you got it right because of variety. You're just trying to change it up, and you happen to get it right. I'm
I
so
you
mad.
get me back in a game in a couple of games, Joe. But our overreaction, and we both kind of agreed for this overreaction just on how they played in week one, and maybe some of the other teams in the division. We'll just leave it at that. The Bengals are here to party and they will not finish last in the division. Joe, are you buying or selling that the Bengals will not finish last in the AFC North?
Yeah, I mean it's tough. Like, that one's hard to say right now because, after week 1, yeah, I'd say the Bengals looked better than the Ravens for sure. And,
Mhm.
you know, kind of comparable to Steelers. I mean, the Steelers offense looked terrible, but defense was lights out while the Bengals offense was really good and defense was okay. So, I think that they very well could, finish third or even second in this division, depending on how the rest of it shakes out. Um, I think it's just too early to say right now that they're gonna beat the Steelers or the Ravens. Is kind of where I'm at right now. But it was an awesome first game for them. First game back for Joe Burrow. Jamar Chase, welcome to the NFL. Just big plays left and right. Jesse Bates trying to get a contract extension,
Mhm.
forcing a fumble in overtime. Game changing play. Just I love to see it from the Bengals. I think I predicted Zach Taylor was going to get fired after this season. You know, I liked what I saw out of Zach Taylor. I mean, he had the Bengals fighting throughout that entire game, even though the Vikings were coming back. And that's a game that most of the time the Bengals would probably lose. So definitely encouraging to see them sneak out the win there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I'm going to sell on this overreaction for now, Joe. And I agree with you. It could happen. We might be close. It's week 1. We don't know. I'm not saying I'm drinking the Kool Aid. I'm not opening or pouring a glass, but I am putting the Kool Aid in the fridge so it can get cold for when we do open that up in Cincinnati. And I mentioned this in the season preview, Joe. I believe their next couple of games are like the Jaguars, and I think they have a game with the Steelers, but then it's another very winnable game. So I wouldn't be surprised if the Bengals come out of September 3-1, 4-0, or whatever. So it's a very favorable schedule for them in the next couple of weeks to get a good start. Now, Vikings, we both predicted what 6 wins each
Right.
of the Vikings. I mean, I like what they saw. Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, they had 2 touchdowns. They were moving the ball decently okay, but that defense still needs a lot of work, and that's very concerning if you're Mike Zimmer because that's basically his forte is defense.
Yeah, I mean, this was a very Kirk Cousins esque game in which we saw some highlights from Kirk Cousins, and the stat box might look well, but missed a lot of throws on third down, struggled against pressure, and just did not come up clutch in the big moments. I mean,
Mhm.
and this isn't even in a primetime game, so I really have been down on the Vikings for a little bit now. I think Justin Jefferson and Adam Thielen are both very good receivers. Dalvin Cook is great as well. But when you have Kirk Cousins manning the helm, you don't have a great offensive line and you don't have a great defense. That's not a recipe for success in today's NFL. And I really think that this is the end of the line for Mike Zimmer. You think I'm overreacting, Tim? But I think that number one, Mike Zimmer's fired by the end of the season, either whether it's during the season if the Vikings are just trash or at the end of the season if they're meh. But I think he's gone. This is his last season, and I think that Kirk Cousins gets benched partway through the season for Kellen Mond.
Yeah, I definitely don't hate that at all. Can definitely see that happening, especially toward the end of the season, because Kellen Mond probably is the future of Minnesota for their quarterback position. So if they're already out of it, might as well just start and give them some experience. So I'm with you on that one, Joe. And then the next team we're going to talk about is the Seahawks defeating the Colts 28-16. Russ was cooking in the first half, and then they definitely coasted in the second half. And I think that's to prevent us from saying, all right, Russ MVP, they just put up 45 points again, like he's cooking. I think they're preventing that for when they go very conservative later in the season, Joe. Not a lot that I liked from the Colts. Our overreaction, or at least the overreaction that I came up with, Joe, is the Colts have no wide receivers, and Carson Wentz will struggle all season. Now, Joe, you are a Carson Wentz expert. You are a Carson Wentz with Frank Reich expert. Are you buying or selling that overreaction?
I'm absolutely buying that. I don't think that's an overreaction at all because that was a prediction that I've been making since he went to the Colts. I mean, I know that they've had some injuries, but even at full strength, I mean, you've got T.Y. Hilton, Zach Pascal, Michael Pittman, uh, Paris Campbell,
Hmm.
and then Jack Doyle and Mo Alley Cox. You've got a couple good running backs, and they've got a very I would say a pretty good offensive line. Top
Yeah,
five, top 10,
absolutely.
when healthy. But how is this any different from what we saw when Carson Wentz was in Philadelphia? We had a great offensive line, we had a good running game, we didn't have receivers. It's a very similar situation, and this is not a situation in which he has success. I mean, he took a lot of pressures, a lot of sacks in week one. People are trying to shift the blame to the offensive line already. Just we always make excuses for Carson Wentz. When are we going to look at the facts? This man holds the ball longer than almost any other quarterback in the NFL, and it makes things more difficult for an offensive line. This man somehow managed to fumble on a fourth and inches QB sneak without being tackled or touched. He fumbles, and the Seahawks recover while the Colts are driving. So, very Carson Wentz-esque game. I am not surprised at all that this is how it went, or how this season might unfold for the Colts, especially with their schedule. Yeah, no, I do not think that's an overreaction one bit, Timmy B. I'll buy that every day.
Yeah, no, I am definitely buying that as well. And the reason I looked at that because I was looking at the box score. There was 25 receptions from the Colts. Six of them went to Jonathan Taylor, and six of them went to Naeem Hines. So half of the receptions went to two running backs, and not the 3, 4 wide receivers, and even five pass catchers, wide receivers, and tight ends. And looking at the targets as well, they had 15 of the 35 targets. Now, obviously, Jonathan Taylor is a very talented running back, and as well as Naeem Hines in the passing game. So definitely understandable that they're up there. But when you have such young guys like Zach Pascal and Michael Pittman and Paris Campbell, they have been used as draft assets and draft picks in the last couple of years, saying, hey, we know T.Y. Hilton is always hurt and he's getting old. We need some nice, young, speedy wide receivers, and that they aren't doing it. So I am definitely buying that. I think Carson Wentz will struggle. And I think we will see it once, like you said, with that tough 5-6 games to start the season, Joe. Yeah, I'm sure once the Colts go 0-5 or 0-6, we're all going to be like, yeah, okay, like Carson Wentz is not good.
I know. I just really hope they don't bench him after they're 0-5, because then we won't get the
Yeah.
first round pick. So far so good. He started, played the entire game. You know, 16 more games to go, Carson. Actually, I think it's only like 11 more games to go in order for us to meet that 70% threshold. So we're
Yeah.
getting there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like I said, I don't really have anything on the Seahawks. It was a very classic week one game. Russ was cooking. Both DK and Tyler Lockett had 4 or 5 catches. They had a touchdown apiece. And the offense looks good. The defense did just enough. I mean, we did name Jonathan Taylor, Naeem Hines, and again, that nice offensive line. So not surprising that the Colts moved the ball for a couple of touchdown drives. But yeah, I mean, I really don't have anything on the Seahawks. And obviously we will in the next couple of weeks when they start to get a little bit more conservative. But that's
Right.
it.
No,
Alrighty.
that's exactly right, Tim. I mean, I would say just, a lot of people are overreacting and saying, Russell Wilson MVP candidate, Seahawks candidate, they look great. They're going to win the West. I mean, I think that's a complete overreaction simply because we've seen this
Yeah.
before. I mean, the beginning of the season, Russell Wilson, Pete Carroll, everyone's, doing great. They start off hot. Russ is cooking, and then it's only a matter of time until the wheels fall off and Pete Carroll wants to run the ball into a brick wall over and over, not let Russ cook. Well, we already know what's going to happen. So yeah, I'm not overreacting to it too much from Seattle. They're just a better team than the Colts.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you on that one. And now, Joe, it's now time for your Philadelphia Eagles defeating the Falcons 32-6. My overreaction right now, and you'll expand on that. My overreaction is that the Eagles are better than we think, and they are going to the playoffs. Now, Joe, are you about to turn into the Hulk from all the green Kool-Aid you've been drinking? Are you, being humble and maybe selling that overreaction?
Well, the first part of your overreaction that the Eagles are better than we expected, that's absolutely the case.
Okay.
And, I think that's a big testament to Nick Sirianni and to Jonathan Gannon. I mean, their first games. I mean, Nick Sirianni has not coached. He's not called a game since high school. Since he was calling high school games, he's been wide receivers coach, offensive coordinator. Hasn't called an actual NFL game until this game, and it was masterful. Just
Mhm.
everything that we wanted to see from the offense. Jalen Hurts had total command of the offense, played a flawless game. Devontae Smith looked great. Jalen Rager caught a touchdown. Let's go. He's not a bust. Offensive line, Jordan Mailata, after that big contract, played fantastic, and the defense played great as well. So, I mean, it's it was a great win. I mean, the Eagles did not score over 30 points a single time last season.
Oof.
You know, like it's crazy to think about that. But I mean, this was a win in all three facets of the game: offense, defense, special teams. And it was our biggest win margin, 26 points since 2017. So a lot of really good things
Something
to
pretty
take
fun
out of.
happened for you guys that year.
Oh yeah, I met my wife Brooke in 2017. That's what happened.
Yeah.
And the Super Bowl too, I guess. Yeah, no, like I said, masterful game all around. It is the Falcons. I'm not gonna go
Falcons
too
are bad.
crazy.
Confirmed.
Falcons are bad, confirmed. Eagles are better than we expected. And this division is still not a great division. I mean, it's still probably one of, if not the worst division in the NFL. Washington just lost Ryan Fitzpatrick for 6 to 8 weeks. Dallas is already struggling, internally. So it's not out of the realm of possibility that the Eagles can win this division. I mean, oh my goodness, my 13-year-old sister just added me as a friend on Snapchat. I am shocked. A little bit of
Woo!
breaking news. Do you hear that? Hannah just added me on Snapchat. How did you get Snapchat? Breaking news. As I was saying, it was a lot of fun to watch. Great game. The division is still there. I don't know if I would buy that just yet because it was the Falcons, and this was Nick Sirianni's first game and Jonathan Gannon's first game putting stuff on tape. So
Yeah.
next week against San Francisco, that'll be a good measuring test to see if we are competitive this year or if the Falcons are just that bad. But
Could be both.
great game all around. It could be great game all around. My overreaction, which I think is realistic, is that the Eagles have a top 10 defense
Oh,
this year.
okay.
I mean, this defensive line is healthy. It is stacked. It is deep. Like we have a very good defensive line rotation. The linebackers are competent, which is a far cry of an upgrade over what we had last year. And the secondary also looked pretty good too. I love the different looks and different types of schemes I saw out of Jonathan Gannon in his first game. Didn't send a lot of pressure, didn't
Mhm.
really need to. We bent but didn't break at all in that entire game. Allowing two long drives to start and a lot of yards in the run game in the first half, but two field goals and that's it. I mean, we still haven't allowed a touchdown yet this season. It was a phenomenal game against, not a bad offense. I mean, Matt Ryan is a great quarterback. Calvin Ridley, a fantastic wide receiver. We have a lot of high hopes for Kyle Pitts. I mean, and for a team that struggled to do the easy things right, like cover the one guy they have. Don't let this guy be the reason why you guys lose. I mean, Darius Slay was here last year, but I watched a couple games where Devontae Adams just took over and, just
Mhm.
outplayed him. DK Metcalf, there were games like that. And this was not one of them. So it was really encouraging to see, and I really think this defense can be one of the best in the NFL this season.
Yeah, and it's definitely easy when you play the Daniel Jones and the New York Giants a couple times, as well as a
That's
couple
right.
of banged up offenses in the NFC East. Speed of banged up offenses in the NFC East, Joe, we got the Chargers defeating the football team by a score of 20-16. This is where you catch me in the standings. I went with the football team. You went with the Chargers. So we split on our differences. So that I guess that's a positive that we drew. um, but the overreaction is, as you just mentioned, Fitzpatrick got injured out 6 to 8 weeks. So Taylor Heineke is now the starting quarterback. So my overreaction is Washington's playoff chances are now gone. That Taylor Heineke is the starting quarterback. Joe, are you buying or selling that based on what you just said about the Eagles?
Yeah, I'm not buying that for kind of the same reason as well. I mean, just because it's such a bad division. I mean, there's no clear cut best team in the division. Taylor Heineke, when he came in, he made some plays,
Mhm.
and that defense that Washington has is still really good. So I still wouldn't be shocked for them to sneak a couple wins out here and there, maybe go 500 while Fitzpatrick is gone, or even if they don't and do poorly. Like I said, this division is terrible. I think the Giants might be the worst team in the NFL this season. I mean, the Eagles could come down to earth. Cowboys implosion is always a possibility. So, Washington could still make it happen just because of how talented that defense is. Um, Yeah, I think that is a little bit of a overreaction. I mean, because this was a really good game by Washington to, keep it close against, a Chargers team that has, great offense and, a complete team. And, is one of the better teams in the AFC, I believe.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I'm selling that. I mean, hell, Heineke was the only quarterback close enough to beat the Buccaneers last year in the playoffs. People forget that that defense is still electric. Only held Justin Herbert and the electric Chargers offense to only 20 points, especially coming back to force a touchdown. And looking at the football team schedule right now, Joe, they have the Giants this week. We'll pick that game later, but then it's like Bills, Falcons, Saints, Chiefs, Packers, Broncos. So even with Fitzpatrick, those are a couple of tough games. They probably might not have
Right.
been winning them anyway. So this could definitely be a second half surge. So I'm definitely selling that as well. I don't think the playoff chances are going to, especially when you have that defense and that coaching with Ron Rivera as well. Now, I don't know if this is an overreaction on the Chargers side, but Justin Herbert MVP question mark?
Yeah, no, I don't think it's an overreaction at all. I mean, he didn't blow the stat line out of the water this game when you look at, yards and touchdowns. I think he had one interception in this game. But I mean, he was on fire on third down. I think they
Mhm.
had like 77% on third down. I want to say it was like 14 of 19,
Sure.
which is phenomenal. And he was just making all these great throws all over the field. And again, this is against a really, really good defense, one of the best in the NFL. So I think that Justin Herbert, his stats are going to be there as he plays a little bit worse defenses. And, if the Chargers win these games that, they didn't win last year and they haven't been able to overcome in the past, and they have as good of a run as we think they're going to, I would not be shocked for Justin
Mhm.
Herbert to win it, especially if they can upset the Chiefs
Yeah.
and pull that division out of their pocket.
Yeah. And we'll get to probably the front runner for MVP in just a couple of games. But I'm with you. I would not be shocked if he did it. I mean, he was offensive rookie of the year last year when everybody thought it would be Tua or Burrow, and might have been Burrow had he not been injured. But Herbert was fantastic once he got named the starter full time, of course. And now a game. Probably the first shocker of the day, Joe, in terms of the grand scheme of the NFL, not just our own picks, but Steelers go into Bills Mafia and win 23-16. Now, granted, both offenses didn't look fantastic. Steelers defense forced some turnovers for a short field. They had a blocked punt for a touchdown. But by no means was this game pretty to watch, even if you are a Steelers fan, a Bills fan, or you just are a fan of football. So we both got that one wrong. Steelers did ruin a couple of my bets. But my overreaction is, and this is probably the case for the rest of the NFL, is that the Steelers are just as good as they were last year and will go on another undefeated run for the first couple of weeks, maybe even a couple of months of the season like they did last year. You buying or selling that, Joe?
I'm definitely selling that. I mean, this is it's a very similar team to last year. I mean, their defense is still elite. The
Mhm.
offense is, you know, they didn't really add much on offense outside of Najee Harris in like the skill positions, but the offensive line is significantly worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's five new starters. I think downgrades at almost every position. Ben Roethlisberger is another year older, and still dinking and dunking like last year. So not a encouraging offense. Very well coached team, very good defense. I think that this defense is even better than we might have expected with how they looked against Buffalo.
Mhm.
But I mean, I just don't think it's sustainable to win all of those games like they did last year when your offense is, this pedestrian at best. So I think that, eventually, they'll take some L's. I mean, they might be better than I gave them credit for. I really thought the wagons were going to come off, but I mean, that's a super encouraging start for them this season. I mean, I thought they're going to lose for sure, and
Mhm.
just have their first losing season under Mike Tomlin. I think this really speaks to him and his coaching staff.
Yeah, believe me, Joe, I think most of America, if you weren't a Steelers fan, you were picking the Bills to win this game. And yeah, I mean, the offensive line didn't look that great. I love Najee Harris as a talent, but you can't basically have a whole new offensive line and then spend a first round pick on a running back. I know your opinions on that as well. So yeah, that was a little dangerous. But yeah, the Steelers defense is still one of the best defenses out there. TJ Watt, we all defensive player of the year for sure, or at least will be in the running, of course, if he stays healthy. Good secondary as well. So I don't think it's so much as the Steelers of being as good as they were last year. Still going to be a very competitive team. Still going to be lingering around 500, maybe even a little bit better for a wild card spot. But I think the big overreaction or the big shocking thing is the Bills. Are they back down to earth? And Joe, you said it. You said it as well. Have defenses figured out Josh Allen, or is the Steelers defense that good? Are you buying or selling that the Bills are going to I think they'll regress, but are you buying or selling that they are now back down to earth and not as high powered of offense as they were last year?
I kind of am buying that. I mean, this offensive line has questions, and the success that Josh Allen had last year was completely unsustainable. I mean, his completion percentage I think was in the high 70s last season,
Mhm.
and after being atrocious his first couple seasons, and I think that after this first game, it's at like in the 50s or something like
Yeah.
that. So, you know, both Josh Allen and Brian Dabble might have gotten figured out a little bit this offseason. They ran a very different style of offense last year, just being so aggressive and not running the ball, and trying to get way ahead of the sticks early and just not even get to third down. I think that teams are, when you show clearly that you don't care to run the ball, or really you're not a threat in that regard, and you put that on tape all season, and then you continue to kind of do that week one, it makes the defense able to, not nobody has to sell out against the run. You don't have to
Mhm.
stack the box. You can double Stephon. You can, shift the coverage around elsewhere to make sure Josh Allen doesn't take the top off. But, I've definitely got concerns for the Bills. So, it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But it's also interesting that, we heard talk about, has the NFL figured out Lamar Jackson, but nobody wants to ask, has the NFL figured out Josh Allen?
Yeah, and I think I'm going to sell. I think I'm going to be selling this overreaction. I still think that they're going to be a high-powered offense. Looking at the box score right now, Josh Allen was 30 for 51. Whether they should be throwing that much, when if you saw the game, Joe, it was very windy up in the New England region and even in upstate New York where Buffalo was. The flags were going pretty fast, throwing 51 times. But I mean, they kind of abandoned the run too, only ran 25 times. So I still think that the offense is good and will still be like last year. But I think going up against the Steelers defense, and we'll see. That's the beauty of week one. There's so many unknowns. There's so many who's or what's it's. I mean, they play the Dolphins next week, so that'll be a nice little good barometer for this Bills
Yeah.
offense, as well as the Miami defense. And we'll get to them in just a second. And Joe, back to back shockers of the day. Once again, the Arizona Cardinals go into Tennessee and just dominate 38 to 13. Chandler Jones, 5 sacks in the first quarter. Unbelievable. And we both picked Tennessee too. So we are on a little cold streak. But man, like you can't do that. You can't get Julio Jones and basically upgrade your offense and do that.
Yeah, no, this was a rough game to watch. I mean, for a team that, we have a lot of high expectations for in Tennessee, to just get flat out embarrassed like that week one against the Cardinals. I mean, we think the Cardinals can be good this year. I didn't think they're going to be that good. Um, so I'm not sure. Are the Cardinals that much better than we thought? Are the Titans that much worse than we thought? You know, I don't know. I think that we might have hyped the Titans up a little bit too much, and we might have also underestimated the Arthur Smith value as the offensive coordinator. Hot take, was Arthur Smith a better offensive coordinator than a head coach? He did not have
Definitely an
his guys
overreact. Yeah.
prepared week one, and but also Tennessee didn't look too prepared week one.
No.
So maybe if he was just focusing on that one role, maybe that Tennessee offense looks a little better. But yeah, I mean, nobody got going on Tennessee, and you can't when you're getting sacked every
Right.
single drive you're out there. But I mean, the defense did not help out either. I mean,
No.
so many big plays. Like I'm worried that this defense is going to be an Achilles heel for the Titans all season, because if they get down early, you can't run the ball with Derrick Henry, and Ryan Tannehill is forced to throw. And clearly, this offensive line is not great at pass protection. They are built to run the ball, and if they're like I said, if they're down early, that they're throwing. Ryan Tannehill is a beatable quarterback. I've loved what I've seen out of Ryan Tannehill since he escaped Adam Gase and came to Tennessee. But I think there's still a reason, why he was available when he was, and I don't think that he's this elite quarterback that some people have made him out to be, even though his
Yeah.
stats have definitely been up there. When your team is having this much success, and you're just kind of steering the bus, it makes things easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it definitely doesn't get easier. Now they got to go cross country and play at the Seahawks in Seattle's first home game of the season with full capacity. So that'll be a tough one. And my overreaction is more on the Cardinals side, Joe. We obviously saw Kyler Murray and everything like that. So my overreaction or a hot take is that Kyler will have, and the Cardinals offense will have a very similar season to Lamar Jackson, the Ravens a couple of years ago. They will compete for the number one scoring offense. They will be setting records, and they're going to win 14 plus games. Are you buying or selling that?
Ah, man, it's so tough. I think I'm selling that because I think this Titans defense is even worse than we thought, and I know
Okay.
this Cardinals offense. When it's gone up against the Rams, when it's gone up against the Niners, it hasn't looked nearly that explosive. So I think against some of the better defenses this year, we'll see a little bit more of a realistic view of what the Cardinals offense actually is. But I do think that they're better than we thought. And I mean, we both had them in fourth place in their division, still having a good season. But maybe they're right there competing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think I'm going to sell it now as well. Like, there's no denying if the MVP award was given out today, it would be Kyler Murray. And I still think that he can continue that. I still think that they're going to have a very good offense and do compete with some of the records that the Chiefs and the Ravens have set in the last couple of seasons and be one of the top offenses in the NFL. But again, it is week one. Let's, step on the brake a little bit. Not ready to predict the Cardinals winning 14 plus games, and we'll see. That's why we play the football games, Joe. That wraps up the 1 o'clock games. Now it's time to move on to the 4 o'clock games. Don't really have much to say about the Broncos beating the Giants 27-13. It was a game that was actually surprisingly on red zone more than I thought it would be. But my overreaction is, you said it, Joe, the Giants worst team in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an overreaction. I mean, I said, is it the Giants or is it the Lions? Who's going to be the worst? And the way Week 1 went, I think it's the Giants. I mean, that offensive line is so bad. How have they
Yeah.
not figured this out yet? You've got a young quarterback in Daniel Jones. You've got a dynamic running back in Saquon Barkley. You know, you got to have a good offensive line, or at least an average offensive line. Otherwise, you're wasting all that. It doesn't matter what receivers you have. It doesn't matter
Oh
what
my
running back
God,
is back
Joe.
there. What just happened?
Week 8 Monday Night Football. Giants at Chiefs. Oh my God, that's going to be a bloodbath.
Jesus, why did they
We're all
do
going to
that?
watch it.
I know, right? We'll still watch it just to watch the Chiefs destroy them.
Oh, wait, and then
Um,
well, hold on. They play week 8, their Monday Night Football at the Chiefs. Then they play the Raiders at home. Then they have a bye week, and then they are back on Monday Night Football at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
yeah, I figured that's who it was. Yeah, I don't know. Like the Eagles have a primetime game against the Buccaneers as well.
Yeah, Thursday
Buccaneers got
night.
all.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't realize the Eagles had like two primetime games in like the first month after having and I think that's like it right now. I mean, we got the Cowboys week 3, and then the Bucks I think week 5, week 6, something like that. So yeah, but getting back to the Broncos and the Giants, yeah, I mean, I really think this Giants team could be one of the worst in the NFL. And this Broncos could be a little bit better than we thought with Teddy Bridgewater. He did a really good job taking care of the football, making smart decisions, extending the play, and making something out of nothing. And this defense played really well as well. I like you said, I don't think there's a whole lot to say, but yeah, I mean, it's not encouraging for the Giants and for Daniel Jones's future in New York.
Yeah, I'm still holding on the Broncos. I think the defense played great. Teddy did not make that many mistakes, so I think they could make a run. I still think there's a lot of pieces in Denver. One thing you do have to consider, Joe, is that Melvin Gordon had a 70-yard touchdown. All right, if you take that away, scores now 20-13 Broncos, assuming the Broncos don't score. Daniel Jones fumbled in the red zone, so if they were to score that, it's a tie ball game. So it wasn't a pretty game to watch. Denver just made less mistakes than the Giants, a couple more big plays, but I'm with you. I don't see anything promising from the Giants. Broncos were just the better team today, and it's not going to be easier for the Giants moving forward. And we'll see with Denver. We'll see.
Yeah, hopefully Jerry Judy comes back healthy and can contribute to a late postseason push.
Yeah, absolutely. Now moving to a game that was exciting, but the score wasn't as exciting. The Dolphins go into Foxborough, win for the second time in 3 years in Foxborough, defeating the Patriots 17-16. A late fumble for the Patriots as they were in position to kick the game-winning field goal. Dolphins defense got a couple of turnovers. Patriots defense got a couple of turnovers as well. But in the first battle of Tua versus Mac Jones, Tua came out victorious. And the overreaction, Joe, is, and we talked about this a little bit before recording, is that these are basically the same team, more or less, same system, same everything. And the overreaction or the hot take is Dolphins Patriots week 18, final game of the season. That game will decide the final AFC playoff spot or a AFC playoff spot. I would assume probably just the last one, assuming
Right.
the loser doesn't make the playoffs. But I think that's the hot take, and I think that's an easy buy.
Yeah, no, I'm absolutely buying that as well. I mean, like you said, these teams are almost the exact same from top to bottom. I mean, all the coaches come from the Patriots. They got two Bama quarterbacks going up against each other, have been in the same system the past couple of years. You know, they rely on strong defense, strong special teams. Both these offenses run similar plays. It was just one team punts, the other team goes out, runs the same plays, punts, like turnover here, turnover there, like, someone gets a touchdown. The Dolphins just have better skill players overall. Um, but I think that it is going to still come down to that last game of the season, just because, these teams are a little bit closer than people expect, bas- basically because they're such similar franchises in terms of their structure.
Right, right. Yeah, no, I definitely agree. I think it's going to be fun to watch both teams. I mean, I liked what I saw from Tua now having a full off season as a starter. Jalen Waddle, obviously, that instant connection was there. Likewise, on Mac Jones, was a little bit surprised at some of the Patriots wide receivers. I thought it would be very tight end and run heavy, and it was for the most part, but he was still getting the ball to open Jacoby Myers and some of the other Patriots wide receivers that Nelson Aguilar,
Nelson Aguilar touchdown.
baby. Yeah, how could we forget? How could we forget? So very excited to watch these two teams battle it out for likely second place behind the Bills in the AFC East. And now, clearly, it was game of the day. We said that going into week one. Chiefs. Oh, hold on. We got one more before the Chiefs and Browns. I'm sorry, Joe. What we thought would have been a
Yeah, this
statement
is a
win
rough
from
one.
the Green Bay Packers. They lost 38-3 to Jameis Winston. Jameis Winston and the New Orleans Saints. Jameis Winston threw for under 150 yards, but he threw for 5 touchdowns and no interceptions. Packers didn't even show up, man. Packers didn't even show up. So my overreaction is two things. One, with the Saints, they are better with Jameis, and they are still a threat to win the AFC, NFC, excuse me, still a threat to win the NFC. And that the offseason drama for the Packers was a little bit of a bigger distraction than we might have a thought. Now, Joe, are you buying both, selling both? What are your thoughts on this Saints Packers and some of these overreactions?
Yeah, I do think that the Saints offense is better with Jameis simply because he's got such a more live arm. He can hit the deep ball so much better. Drew Brees said it himself on Sunday Night Football. They got someone who can throw the deep
Right.
ball now. So that kind of said it all there. I was really impressed with Jameis and the game plan. This is a really good offensive line, a really good run game, and a great coaching staff, and defense played phenomenal as well against who we thought was you know potentially an MVP candidate again, Aaron Rodgers. So this can definitely be a competitive team. I'm just interested in seeing that sustained success from Jameis. But
Right.
this could be the best version of Jameis that we get. Marrying his raw ability with Sean Payton's coaching and offensive scheme. This could be a really fun season for the Saints, which would be a shock to me since I had them doing pretty poorly this season. So I was shocked with how it went. I I don't know. Are the Saints better than we thought, or are the Packers even worse than we thought, or did they just check out completely? I mean, I'm absolutely buying that, this offseason was a complete distraction to this
Mhm.
team. I mean, so much drama with Rodgers, with Devontae Adams. You come back for training camp, you tell them to bring in Randall Cobb, you're pining for Clay Matthews, like, and then to come out and look this bad. I mean, this is probably the worst game of Rodgers' career,
Oh,
and
easily.
easily in the Matt LaFleur era of Green Bay. I mean, every facet of this game was, I mean, for the Packers, they just didn't show up. Offense, defense, special teams. You know, on paper, this should have been the Packers game to win. And drama is something that's it's hard to quantify and put on paper. And it's clear that the drama was a distraction. And hopefully they can right the ship. I've got Aaron Rodgers in one of my fantasy
Yeah.
leagues, in my big money league, and he got me one freaking point.
Dude, you're preaching the choir. I lost by about 1 point. So if you told me going into the weekend that Aaron Rodgers needed 3 fantasy points for me to win, I would have been like, I win. And it didn't
Yeah.
happen. It didn't happen. But yeah, and again, like, how do you buy back in? Like, let's say you're Zadarius Smith on the defense of Green Bay. Everybody knows this is Rodgers and Devontae Adams last time in Green Bay, and they come out and do that. Like, you got to think about the other positions as well. Why would I, as like a Zadarius Smith, being like, yeah, you know what? Let's go on this season. Like after that performance. So only time will tell. We did mention with the Lions show or with the Lions show. Go on.
Tim, I have another overreaction potentially. There's theory that Aaron Rodgers there or a conspiracy that Aaron Rodgers is just sabotaging the Packers from the inside out because of the way they've treated him. Are you buying that Rodgers is tanking on purpose and looking ahead to the future already?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I'm not buying. I'm not buying that at all. Now, if they go 0-4, 0-5, and then LaFleur's like, all right, this is clearly happening. Jordan Love is the starter. We got to trade Aaron Rodgers immediately. Then yeah, but not right now. I won't buy into it because I was about to say, they're playing the Lions at home on Monday Night Football. First game in Lambeau Field at full capacity with fans. We'll get to that one in a second in terms of full capacity Monday night games. But this is going to be a game that we're going to say, hey, the Lions are okay for real. They went into Lambeau and won, or being like, oh, okay, that was just a fluke week one. Aaron Rodgers and the Packers are still a threat to win the NFC for sure. So yeah, that was probably the biggest
Yeah.
shocker of the day before on Sunday, excuse me. And now it's time for the game of the day that we all had expected: the Chiefs and the Browns. Chiefs win 33-29. Joe, we both predicted the Chiefs, and we both said as long as Mahomes and Reed are there, they're probably going to win this game. It might be a comeback. They're going to get the ball late and make a score. That's pretty much what happened. And honestly, I didn't have an overreaction or a hot take because that's exactly how I thought the game would go. I thought the Browns would probably go up earlier or take the lead at some point, and then Mahomes and co are going to just score touchdowns at will and win the game.
Yeah, I mean, I pretty much agree with you. I think that the Browns, really lost this game themselves. I mean, they really had the Chiefs right where they wanted them. I mean, Nick Chubb was running the ball well.
Right.
Baker was being efficient. Defense was slowing down the Chiefs. They hadn't allowed those explosive plays. And then, we get a Nick Chubb fumble. We get a bomb to Tyreek. We get, a pump drop the punt and gets returned for a touchdown or in great field position, whatever it was. And Baker throws another pick. So a lot of correctable mistakes that the Browns could have avoided and won that game. So my it's not much of an overreaction, but I'm gonna say that if the Browns and Chiefs meet in the playoffs this season again, and they're both at full strength, I think the Browns are going to pull it off because they're not going to make those mistakes they did week one.
Definitely agree with you on that one, Joe. I think that would be my overreaction and hot take as well, as that the Browns will win the rematch should it happen in January. Now, I could also just see on the flip side the rematch happening, the Chiefs just win 50-0 because
Of course, it's
um,
always a possibility.
but yeah, I'm going with that as well. But a great game. Excited to see both teams, and very interesting, Joe, that the AFC West and the NFC West all went undefeated. They went 8-0. The Houston Texans are in first place in the AFC South.
And
Um,
that's right. And your Philadelphia Eagles are in first place in the NFC East, winning the only game of the division. And your Cowboys are in a firm last place, being the only team that lost to lose to a team within the conference. So they are in a definitive fourth place. I saw a ranking that had the Cowboys in second place. You're in fourth place, Dallas. Get over it and get used to it.
I love that fiery attitude, Joe. But now we got to talk about a team that doesn't have a lot of firepower on offense in the Chicago Bears. Well, when Justin Fields is playing, he actually did score his first rushing touchdown. So shout out to him. But the Rams beat the Bears on Sunday Night Football by a score of 34-14. My overreaction or my hot take, maybe it's not that big of an overreaction, but the Rams have found their quarterback in Matthew Stafford, and they're going to return to their 2018 selves and just dominate the NFC and go to the Super Bowl. Are you buying or selling that?
I don't know if I'm buying that. I mean, I think that they're. I mean, we picked them to win the division. I think they're going to be really good. I mean, we saw the big plays that were
Mhm.
lacking when Jared Goff had been there. So I definitely think this is going to be one of the best Rams teams that we've seen. But they're not going to have the run game that they did with Todd Gurley. And I'm a little bit concerned about the defense, Tim. I think my overreaction I said was, is Brandon Staley, the
Mhm.
architect or the reason why this defense was so elite last year, because the Bears were able to move the
They
ball on
were,
them,
yeah.
a couple of times, with Andy Dalton and with, no offensive line. I mean, predictably, Jason Peters, who was in for an injured left tackle, gets injured in the first half. And then I think their third string left tackle also got injured. So they were down some linemen. But the Bears were still able to move the ball. David Montgomery had a good game. Allen Robinson, was getting a lot of targets. You know, they made some plays. I was surprised that they were able to move the ball as much as they were able to, and against a better offense, it'll be interesting to see how this Rams defense adapts because not only did they lose Brandon Staley, but they also lost a couple pieces in John Johnson, I think Troy Hill. Just a couple significant pieces to that defense, and it's going to be interesting to see how they do against some offenses that we expect to be a little bit better than a Andy Dalton led Chicago Bears.
And, well, they better figure it out soon, Joe, because next week they play at the Colts, which probably should go as expected. But
Easy money.
then they have Tampa Bay, Arizona, and Seattle back to back to back. So that Rams defense definitely needs to figure it out. We do know that the offense is definitely going to put up points with Matthew Stafford over there. And the only thing else I have to say about that game is Bears got to start Justin Fields. I
Yeah.
like
Yeah, that was the only I was struggling to come up with an overreaction because it's not like we've been saying this for a while. They need to start Justin Fields, but we'll say I did like the Rams new jerseys that they debuted. I thought those are pretty nice.
Yeah, I like that nice like shiny
Yeah,
numbers and not shiny
yeah.
colors. Most colors are pretty shiny on
I
uniforms.
hope.
But yeah, that wraps it up. And then Joe, Monday Night Football, the Raiders defeated my Baltimore Ravens 33-27 in overtime. I thought the game was over. Everybody thought the game was over.
I went
I,
to bed. I went to
I
bed after Justin Tucker kicked the field goal.
I know. Well, hey, our defense collapsed. We were gashed the entire second half and fourth quarter. Our offensive line was garbage. But enough about that. The overreaction that I have is that the Raiders defense is legit and will carry them to the playoffs. Joe, are you going to be buying or selling that reaction or overreaction?
I'm
Hot take.
I'm definitely selling that. I don't think that this is, something to get your hopes up, Raiders fans, for. I mean, this just seemed like, in the moment, flash of
Mhm.
the pan type of game like they've had against the Chiefs and the Saints last year. I mean, this was the home opener in Las Vegas, new stadium, fans are there, Monday Night Football, the Ravens are banged up. I mean, this was a game that the Raiders had an opportunity to win. They
Mhm.
also made every effort to lose this game as
Yes.
well.
Yeah. Oh
Um,
boy, did they.
it was a very sloppy game all around. And I think that the Raiders just kind of they were in the moment last night. Um, but I mean obviously the Ravens are a better team than Vegas, so I don't think that it's something to be too concerned about long term for the Ravens. But I my overreaction, which I don't think is a crazy idea. I mean, I think we're going to see Lamar's worst season as a starter throughout the regular season. I mean, we're used to the Ravens coming out, blowing the brakes off teams week one and just having a dominant regular season. Not the case so far this season, coming out flat against the Raiders. I know you're concerned about that offensive line, which I definitely would be as well. I think that's
Yeah,
more of a concern than thinking the Raiders' defensive line is that great. I mean,
yeah.
I think wasn't Cleveland Farrell a healthy scratch?
Well,
Like
that's a whole other conversation
number
about
four
Mike Mayo.
overall pick.
Yeah,
Like
but hey,
yeah,
I think I will be selling the Raiders defense as well. Now I do think that they are going to be better. I mean, Max Crosby was great. They got Yannick Ngakwe. They got uh Perriman, they got who the KJ Brown. So, and I didn't know that they had Gus Bradley as the D coordinator. So they got a couple of guys who are familiar with the system. So I think they might be a little bit better than we think. And they showed the graphic last night that they were the worst defense and couldn't get pressure on the quarterback. Well, but by golly gee, they got pressure, but I think I could have gotten pressure against our offensive line. And I could definitely buy into Lamar having his worst season. And you said it. We're not we didn't blow off the brakes of the Raiders last night. And I even alluded to that with all of our injuries and the banged up running backs specifically, is that this might be a slow roll for the Ravens. But once we get Latavius Murray, Le'Veon Bell, Devontae Smith, used to
Devontae
practicing with the
Freeman. Devontae Smith is on the Eagles,
yes,
future
Devontae Freeman.
MVP.
Yeah, okay, sure. Okay. But yeah, once we get these guys practicing a little bit more and in our system, because you saw it last night, Lamar did not carry many times out of the option. So I think I just don't think that chemistry is there. Once we get Rashad Bateman back and some of our wide receivers healthy as well. And as I said last week, we played the Chiefs in week 2. We'll just give that a nice little L. But then we have the Lions, Colts, Broncos. We got a little bit of a lighter schedule, needless to say. So as I said, it'll be a slow roll for the Ravens offense. So I can definitely get behind that. And excited to see what is happening now. Joe, as I said, we went 10-6. Week 1 is over, man. It is finally over, man.
I thought we did a lot worse. I thought you said in your text this morning we went 6-6. I was like, I was
Well,
trying to figure out the numbers in
we
my head.
started 6-2, and then we finished 4-4. So we did not have a strong final half of the season. So definitely disappointing.
I might just struggle with math.
Hey, you know what? You just might. But we'll be picking the Thursday night football game. Joe, we have the New York Giants at the Washington football team. Current odds, our football team are a 3.5-point favorite, and the over-under is 41. Joe, we talked about the Giants. We talked about the football team. I'm picking the football team. I don't have really anything to say. I'm taking that defense. I don't care who is quarterback. I don't care if they run Antonio Gibson in the Wildcat. That defense, Daniel Jones, I'm going with the football team.
Yeah, no, all of my logic is telling me go with the football team, Joseph. They're just that D line is going to destroy that offensive line. You're going to force a bunch of turnovers. It doesn't matter who the quarterback is. But, I used a lot of logic this weekend, Tim, and, I had a lot of losses. And, I don't know if you saw that video of at FedEx Field, raw sewage just coming out of the stadium, just dumping on fans there. I think we're going to see some sewage on the field. I think that Washington's going to have a stinker. Their Giants, for some reason, do well against Washington. They're always terrible, but they always sneak out a couple wins, and usually 1 or 2 of those are against Washington. And I think that I got you last year with that pick, and I think I'm going to do it again. I'm going to go with the Giants in this one just because.
Although in that game that you got me, Joe, we saw Riverboat Brown go for 2 for the win, and he didn't get it. So they were in a position to win the game.
But right. No, they always have like weird games. Like the Giants are one of those teams that they do well against Washington. The Eagles do well against the Giants. The Cowboys do well against nobody. So, it's a great, way to kind of be able to predict what's going to happen. So I'm going to go with the Giants, even though I think Washington should win this game. Giants are gonna somehow pull it off. I could definitely be wrong.
Hey, well, I'm definitely excited to see who is right and who. Well, maybe they tie. Who knows?
Oh God.
Maybe they tie. But you almost predicted that Eagles. Bengals.
I almost did last year, and then this year when the Bengals went into overtime again, I was just like, oh my God, are they going to tie week 1? Like we're struggling with that game, and by golly, they almost did.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. But we'll see who was right, who was wrong, or maybe we're both wrong with a tie. When we record next and predict the week two or make our picks for the week two NFL games, and we'll definitely get a lot of answer questions answered and answers questioned in week two. So before we sign off, Joe, hit that thumbs up button to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Now, Joe, any final words?
And I'm just so glad football is back. I guess the only overreaction our fans could have is that Joe and Tim are terrible and don't know what they're doing because their predictions were garbage. Going into week one, I would definitely sell on that prediction. Or on that overreaction. We know what we're doing. Last year, we had a pretty good year. We read a lot of articles, watch a lot of football, so we're obviously experts, and that's why we do this podcast and call it the Flea Flicker. So trust the experts. We're gonna bounce back this week, and you guys can count on us to not lead you astray.
Hey, 10-6 still makes the playoffs, baby. 10 and
That's
6.
right.
Well, for some teams it hasn't, but 10-6 generally makes the playoffs. But yeah, I'm excited for week two, ready to get back on track. That's Joey D over there. I am Timmy B. Have a great day, guys. We'll see you soon.